There's lots of features now available in AccuRx which are useful for us in primary care, as well as some options for secondary care as well. So let's have a look to see what features are now available. You'll know that you've got AccuRx set up when you see this green toolbar at the top of your screen. If you can't see this, then you're not set up. To set this up, you need to go to the website AccuRx.com, and then this will bring up this web page. If you work in an NHS trust, you can access some resources through having a NHS number to send details to the patient, and in general practice you can have this configured to your clinical system. And if you click on GP practice, you'll be able to then select your system that you need to set AccuRx up on. Once you've got this set up and you've got the toolbar at the top, there's several options that you can go through. I'm going to go through these in turn. So by far the tool that's used most often is the SMS function, which is this one here. So if I click on this, this will then bring up the SMS function. And here you can send SMSs to patients either through templates that you set up through your practice, or by just entering a text here. So you could say, thank you for your consultation today. Here is a link to some resources we discussed. And then you can enter in a website resource on back pain, for example. If you've configured some templates, you can click here to identify a template that you've already set up. So for example, if they DNA vaccination, a predefined template can be accessed. So the templates are accessed if you click on your initials at the top, go to manage practice, and then you'll be able to manage the templates to set the templates within your own practice. So clicking on here, I'll be able to then choose a template or create a new one. Let's go back to the clinical system. So I can send a predefined text to the patient, and then if I then just click send and save, this will then send this SMS to the patient. Not only that, I get a notification within AccuRx itself to say that this is the text that was sent to the patient, and if I click on reloading the medical record, it'll save it in the record for me as well. The other options that are available here are the fact that you can delay the message. So if you are out of hours and you're sending a SMS, such as I am in this case, you can delay the message until the morning at a predefined time, or I can uncheck this and it will send it straight away. The other option here is that you can attach a file. So I'm sending some details to the patient in an SMS. I can also attach a file. So if I click on attach file, this will then bring up a window for me to select a file that I might have saved somewhere that I can then send to the patient. So in this case, it's a back pain leaflet that I'm attaching, and the patient will get a link. And again, I can send and save, and this will be sent to the patient, and I will be able to see the record within AccuRx itself, and also if I refresh the screen, the link will be there as well, and it's expiring in 14 days, so the patient's got enough time to look at that. The other feature here is that you can also allow the patient to respond once with a text or photo, and this is a new feature which is really useful. So for example, I can send a message to the patient. So following our consultation yesterday, please let me know if you're put the infection has settled. And then if I allow the patient to respond once with a text or photo, this will allow the patient to send a message back to me. So I'm going to send and save this, and I'm also going to show you what this looks like from the patient perspective. So send and save that. And again, if I look in the clinical record, the message is there. And let's have a look to see what the patient receives. So when the patient receives the link, they click on it and they'll see this window. And here they can submit an answer back. So yes, happy to proceed. The patient verifies their date of birth. And then sees the message that I sent them. So I can then respond. And I can attach a photo if I wish as well. It gives me some tips. And then clicking on choose a photo will open up a window where I can attach photos as a patient and then submit that back. And that will send the message back to the practice. If we now go back to the practice window, so now back in the clinical system, I can see from the practice end that I've now got a red dot by the initials, which means that a message has been received. So if I click on that and see patient responses, I can then see that the patient has responded with this message and has also attached a photo that I can view. And then I can save this to the record. At this moment in time, the photo itself does not save to the record, but this is something that hopefully will change quite shortly. And in the meantime, if I want to save this, I need to click on the image and save it to the desktop and then attach it to the clinical record separately. So if I save to the record, this will then add this message to the record that the patient has responded. And if I reload the patient's notes, I can see that the message is now in here. So that's the features with SMS, and there's quite a lot of additional features that are now available, as well as templates and also routine NHS advice that you can put in, and it will automatically link in to the relevant site for nhs.uk. Now the other really interesting feature is called Pathways. So if you click on Pathways here, you can search for a specific pathway. And let's check home BP monitoring daily. So this is where I've said to the patient, I would like you to record your blood pressure readings for the next 7 days and then bring the readings in. So I send a SMS to the patient now and then set different reminders for tomorrow, day 3, day 4, day 5, day 6 and day 7. This is just reminding the patient to actually do a blood pressure reading. So it's quite good prompts via SMS and that we can give to our patients. And these are pathways that can be configured quite easily. So if you click on custom pathway, you can actually design a pathway that you wish. So you can send a message today and then click on the calendar icon to select when you want the next SMS sent, and so on and so forth. You can configure a custom pathway for a patient, or you can use one of the preset options. So that's pathway. Let's have a look at Florey. Florey is a structured questionnaire that can be used to gather different data. Now here, you click on the box here to select which kind of template you wish to have. The asthma questionnaire is quite a useful one. If I click on asthma questionnaire, this will get the patient to complete some questions about the asthma through a link that will be generated. So I'm going to send that to the patient now. And let's have a look at the patient view. So this is the window that the patient will see. So the patient will say yes to proceed, and they enter in their date of birth. And then they'll get their asthma questionnaire. So do I have asthma? And then it will go through the RCP questions. So how often does asthma cause symptoms during the day? How often does your asthma cause symptoms at night? And how often does asthma limit your activities? On average, how many times a week do you need to use your inhaler? Do you have any further information? Smoking status? And then I can submit. And this will then send the message back to the practice, and it also gives me some advice through an asthma.org link. So if we have a look back at the EMIS system, we can see that there's a message that's been received. So I click here, and it's under the asthma team in this case. So I click that, and I can see that the patient response has been returned, and I can save to the record. So the great thing about this is when it saves it as coded data. So if I reload the patient record, I can see that the codes have been applied as per the patient responses. The other thing in Florey is that there are some specific COVID reviews that you can do. So there are triaging questions and remote monitoring questions, and these are really useful. So the triaging questionnaire can be used to try to screen patients before they come into the practice. So let's have a look at this. So this is what the patient receives. Happy to proceed. Verification by date of birth. And it tells me, do I have any specific symptoms? Are you so ill that you stop doing your usual activities? Does anyone have a fever or a cough in the family? Have you travelled outside in the last 14 days? And I can submit that through. So it will give me a bit of advice, and the data is passed back to the practice. If I go back to the clinical system, I can see a message has been received under the COVID team. And here I can see the responses, and I can save those to the record. So it's a good way of triaging patients and sending them a questionnaire before they attend the practice. And then if we go back to the clinical system, we can see that that's been placed into the notes. The other really useful Florey questionnaire is the remote monitoring. This is really useful for patients we want to monitor remotely, but not necessarily have to phone them up every day. We can send them an SMS where they can respond. So here we get a notification that the patient has to complete this within 24 hours. And we can add repeat date if we need to, or we can just send one particular SMS. So I'm going to send and save this to the patient. So let's have a look at what this looks like from the patient's view. So the patient will receive this SMS. They confirm their date of birth. And then they get a series of questions. How do you feel today compared to yesterday? Better, the same, or worse? Same. Do you feel more breathless today? No. If you have any new symptoms? And do I have any of the following equipment at home? And if I do, it'll ask me to enter those details in. If I don't, it won't. So I'm going to select all three to show you how these look. So what's the temperature? 7.2. 37.2. Systolic blood pressure. Diastolic, the lower reading. Oxygen saturations. And the pulse reading. And then submit. And this will pass the data back to the patient record. and it gives me some advice around when I should seek urgent medical attention. Now if we go back to the clinical record, you can see that a message has been received here, and if I click on my initials, it's now coming under COVID-19 monitoring team. If I click on that, I can see that the patient has responded, and I can save this to the record, and it'll also code the data in. So not only can you send messages out, but you can have a monitoring process within your practice to monitor these on a regular basis, and those that have come in you can actually code into the record. So if we have a look at the record and refresh the screen, we can see that these details have been received and they've all been coded appropriately. So that's Florey. Let's have a look at video. So video you can access by clicking here, or you can click on the icon up here. If we click on the icon up here, it'll bring us to the same screen here. So we've got two options. We can either have the consultation from your phone or the device that you're using, the computer that you're on. Now if you're using the computer that you're on, you have to make sure that you've got a suitable webcam, microphone and a supported browser, which shouldn't be a problem in primary care in most situations. It'll send a message to the patient, and then we send that over and the patient will get a link to join a consultation. This is usually done once you've had a clinical conversation with a patient, usually over the phone, and you decide that a video consultation would be an appropriate next step. If I join via my smartphone, you have the option of a message being sent to the patient's phone number and a message being sent to your mobile number, and then the conversation will appear over a smartphone, and that's usually quite a good way of doing it if you don't have webcam on your laptop or PC. It's important that you realize if you're using it on your smartphone that it will use your data unless you connect to practice Wi-Fi, for example, where the data will go over the Wi-Fi link. The other important thing to note is that when you enter your own mobile phone number in this area, this section here, your mobile phone number won't get saved in the record and it won't be transmitted to the patient either. So let's give this a go. I'm going to join from my computer in this case. I'm going to send a link to the patient. And the link has been sent through to the patient here. Now, what I then do is I can click on the link that's been given here to start the video, and the patient will also be sent a link. So let's have a look. I'm going to click this link to join the video, and it's going to open up a browser window for me. So now I'm ready for the consultation. I now need to wait for the patient to click their link and join as well. So now the patient's joined, I can have a consultation. So can I just confirm your name and date of birth, please? And then you have your consultation, and then you can end the consultation once you've finished. So that's video consultations, which is quite a useful way of communicating with patients and doing video calls. We can also see that the video consultation link has also been mentioned in the clinical notes, so that we can actually see that this message was sent to the patient. So the next functionality I'm going to show you is around email. So this is a new functionality that has been built into AccuRx, where we can send messages directly to other clinical staff using secure email. So let's have a look. So let's click on this button here. Now there's some functionality that's still being developed here, such as a list of regular email contacts or contacts that you would want to use from your own practice, such as local services that you want to email from, and these will be available shortly. So this will allow you to put in an email address of an NHS secure email address, and you can see as I'm typing it in, we need to have one of these email addresses. Typically it'll be one that ends in nhs.net. Once that's been entered, the subject will usually be the patient's initials and the NHS number, and I can send a secure email to a colleague using this method. So I can say Here are the details requested on this patient. Now there's two things I can do from here. I can just send and save this to the record, and this will be sent to this email address, or I can attach a document. The beauty of this is that I can either attach the document from the desktop, so if I've got something that I've got saved locally, or more readily, and what we should be advocating more is that we send documents or images that have already been embedded in EMIS Web. So I can either connect to the desktop, a file that I have on my desktop, or I can attach a document or image from EMIS Web. And I'll be able to select a document that's already in the notes, click done, and then be able to send and save to the record. That will then send the email across to the email that I specified, and I can also update the record and you'll be able to see it in there. So that completes the quick whistle-stop tour of the functionality within AccuRx. So I hope that that was a quick whistle-stop tour that was useful for you, so that now you can use AccuRx more effectively in your day-to-day consultations with your patients.